All right, you introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Jonathan Ward. I'm the co-coordinator for The Future Is Us. The current state of Black mental health is rather poor at the moment. We are suffering disproportionately from mental illnesses and a lack of resources that, in order to make any kind of change or progress, we're going to have to address immediately. In terms of resources that the Black community needs to address mental health, we need money. We need more Black mental health professionals. That would be the number one thing that I'd say is we need more young Black people to get into the mental health profession to help our people. The advice that I would give someone who needs help with mental health but doesn't know where to start is just to kind of be brave and ask someone for help, preferably someone in your life who's an authority figure or someone who can direct you to the proper resources.
Collins III. I'm a local business owner and volunteer on various boards and organizations here in Galveston. I think for a long time, the mental health issues have had a stigma, and there are many individuals that need help. Not saying a majority or anything, but there are individuals that have not sought assistance because of the stigma that goes along with it, but we need to do better. And James Baldwin has a quote: to be Negro and somewhat conscious in America is to be in a constant state of rage, and that adds stress to your life. So for those that are conscious, it's a constant state of rage. Well, one of the things that I would suggest to them is it's okay to admit that you need help. For too long, we have not done that, and to seek out institutions or facilities that can provide those services to you. Sometimes they may be complimentary, and then other times it may be a service that they need to pay for to go into a professional to get the help that they need. One of the barriers is fear. Fear of how you're going to be judged if you say you need help. Two is resources. Often we don't have the extra money to pay for the professional help that we need. And three is just not knowing who we can trust or go to get the help that we need in the community. So those are kind of the barriers. I'd say fear, the resources, and then not having the network of relationships and people that you could seek out to get the help that you need.
Everybody, my name is Makia Galladay.
and I'm a mental health advocate because I deal with this on the daily. Currently in the Black community, we have our own generational trauma that we're born with, and then we have the current trauma that we're dealing with because of the things that we see. But then when you add our sub communities, more trauma just comes, right? So you have our LGBTQIA plus brothers and sisters that got a little bit more trauma that they deal with. You got my brothers and sisters that are living in poverty. They got a little bit more trauma that they deal with. So once you add these sub communities, it's like stuff just keeps piling up, piling up. It's hard for us to have these conversations because there are many barriers that are in place, like the fact that in the Black community, children don't have a voice as much as they should, right? They're supposed to be to the side, be seen and not heard. What happens in my house stays in my house. So my advice to everyone is that we continue to combat these generational curses and we raise our voices and we advocate for change because the change starts with us. We have to go out there and look and seek for the things that we need to survive and then pass it on to the next generation.
Hi, my name is Angie Brown, and I'm the Executive Director of the Teen Health Center. Teen Health Center was established in 1985 by a group of physicians who saw a need in the community to provide easily accessible, low-cost care to our teen population. Since it opened, that clinic has expanded into 5 school-based clinics that make up the Teen Health Center. Our clinics are located on local campuses so students can meet their medical and mental health needs without missing a day of school. The mission of the Teen Health Center is to strengthen the health and well-being of Galveston's youth through easily accessible school-based care. Our staff includes pediatricians, physician assistants, mental health therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists. Some of the services that we provide are flu vaccines, well child checks, well woman exams, COVID-19 testing, mental health therapy, psychiatry, both in person and virtually. Teen Health Center provides free medical and mental health care with the support of our sponsors. Galveston students and residents who are 21 years and younger are eligible for our services. We are incredibly grateful for the staff, volunteers, partners, and funders who continue to help us strengthen the health and well-being of Galveston's youth.
For more information or to make an appointment at the Teen Health Center, call 409 761 3530 or visit us at www.teenhealthcenter.org.
Hi, my name is Crystal Nixon and I am Community to School Outreach Coordinator. Community School of Galveston County serves 6 schools on Galveston Island. We also are in Tech City ISD and Santa Fe ISD. Each campus has at least one site coordinator. We work with partners like The Future Is Us to deliver supports to students and families. As trained professionals, we can help with attendance, academics, social needs, and mental and behavioral supports. We can also work to find the resources students and families need. Our office number is 409-765-5395. Our website is cisgalvco.org. That's CISGALVCO.org. Please let us know how we can help and support your families. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. We will be starting at 6:30. We're just waiting for more people to hop on, but we will start promptly at 6:30. Look forward to seeing you then.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mariah Naki, Education Director for NAMI Gulf Coast. I'm here today to share more about our services and what we have to offer the community. So NAMI Gulf Coast serves both Brazoria and Galveston counties by providing support, education, and service advocacy for families and individuals affected by mental health conditions. Our hope is that one day mental health conditions will be treated with the same compassion and understanding as any other illness. Some of the services we provide to Brazoria and Galveston counties are a helpline. This is a helpline where you can give us a call Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, if you are seeking any kind of mental health resources, whether that be psychiatrists, therapists, housing, food pantries, transportation, whatever it may be. We understand that navigating the mental health world can be very challenging, so we're here to help you. We also have support groups that meet online 3 times a month, one for family members affected by a loved one living with a mental health condition, and for individuals who are diagnosed with mental health conditions. They meet 3 times a month online, and it's peer-led by people who have their own personal experience with mental health conditions, either as a family member or an individual living in recovery. I encourage you to whip out your phone, scan the QR code on the screen to learn more about the services that we have, because I am just briefly covering some of the few. We also have a monthly newsletter, which you can sign up for on our website, that has mental health and advocacy articles, as well as any of our upcoming education classes and support groups. Our education programs are also offered at no cost and available in person and online virtually, either via Zoom, Google Meets, Teams, whatever works. We are very flexible. What's so great about our education programs is that they're offered at no cost, and they're led by individuals affected by mental health conditions or family members. So we really share our own personal stories of mental health and get our audience members involved in the discussion about mental health, really with the goal of destigmatizing it and encouraging those who are affected to reach out for help and know that they're not alone in this. We also started our webinar series. We have webinars every other month, and they showcase guest speakers who speak about timely topics such as minority mental health, young adults and anxiety. And in January, on the 21st, we'll be having a self-compassion webinar that's going to be online via Zoom. We'll be offering CU credits for those who need it. So check out our website to register for that. Lastly, we have our meeting of the minds. These meet bi-monthly on the third Wednesday from 9 to 10. And this is just a meeting space for anyone to come, check in, connect with one another. And then we also have guest speakers as well, talk about and share different resources like hurricane preparedness, different group homes, as well as vaccine hesitancy. So we encourage you to check out our website. It really is a hub of resources and services for NAMI Gulf Coast. Of course, don't hesitate to reach out for us if you yourself are experiencing mental health issues, if you're needing support or that additional education. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.
I'm adding, should I add Serena?
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
I'm excited to see.
Unmute.
Yeah, be sure, panelists, to unmute yourself. We're just here to have a conversation. But
Is it just panelists or are we live?
6:30. I can't hear.
We're live.
We're live? All right.
Absolutely.
Great. I just want to show off my shirt. The features list.
Hey, represent.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Hold on.
Happy Founders Day, Julie.
Saying, so 1 second.
June, did you hear me? Did you hear me?
Did you say something to me?
Yeah, I said Happy Founders Day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm doing fanfare stuff, trying to wrap it up here. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just start. We said we would start at 6:30, so let's get the ball rolling. And hello everyone. I'm very excited to have our first soul food session with just everyone that's tuned in, our panelists that are here, community, and to just get this conversation started about Black mental health. And so I am Shanice Blair, the Communities of Care co-coordinator for The Future Is Us. The Future Is Us is a community initiative striving to strengthen our community's mental health, resilience, and well-being with a specific focus on children and youth of color and their families. And we're here tonight with Noshi Berry Salon, the Nia Cultural Center, and just people from Galveston, students, doctors in Galveston here to talk about Black mental health. And so I would like to introduce our panelists that are here right now. We have Clara Miller, we have Tanisha Martinez, June Collins-Pulliam, and Bianca O'Binion. And so, panelists, if you guys want to introduce yourselves, we'll start with who you are, what you do, and what mental health means to you.
I guess I'll go, right? Hi, everyone. My name is Bianca O'Binion, and I am a third-year MD and PH student at the University of Texas Medical Branch. I serve as the Policy Task Force Coordinator of The Future Is Us, an organization that's very dear to my heart. I've been in it since my first year. And so what mental health means to me, it means everything, Mental health is health, so I'm really passionate about it. I want to be a future child and adolescent psychiatrist. And so I'm all about bettering the mental health, especially in the Black community. And tonight we'll get into some of the stigma surrounding that in the Black community. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Clara?
I'm Clara. I'm a medical assistant in Galveston. I recently just left UTMB. I was in pediatrics for 7 years. And I saw a lot of mental health issues there and how they're dealt with in Galveston. My main focus is to be an advocate for these children and get some change made here in Galveston.
That's great. Thank you. I'm with you. We're all with you. Miss Tanisha.
I'm Tanisha Martinez. I'm a sophomore at Ball High School, and I'm a youth lead advocate for The Future Is Us. And basically, we try to get rid of inequality in the school district. And mental health to me means stability, because whether or not it's good or bad, that depends on the amount of stability you have in your life. And I think that the Black community's mental health is often ignored or suppressed, because we're supposed to have the image of being strong, and we don't really get to express our emotions a lot.
Well, we're starting strong. All right. Thank you, Tanisha. Miss June?
I'm June Collins-Pulliam, and although in the past several years I've been working primarily in administration, I'm a board-certified music therapist, and for the first half of my adult life, that was my full-time work in both inpatient and outpatient settings. And so I am here coming from that standpoint of anyone who might be interested in music therapy or the other creative arts therapies. As far as what mental health means to me, I think it's about being able to function in your activities of your daily life, being able to, eat and maintain your hygiene and that kinds of thing, being able to maintain whatever your work or school requirements are just day to day. But also having a sufficient amount of self-awareness and self-care to manage your daily interactions with other people, expressing negative emotions when you have them in an authentic way, but without in any way hurting yourself or others.
That's so important. I was going to say, I suppose I'll say what mental health is to me. Mental health to me is like what everyone's saying. It's important. It's everything. It influences how we think about other people, how we think about ourselves. It influences how we feel about ourselves, other people, situations, whatever may come towards us, and then how we act, because how we think, how we feel, how we act are all intertwined with each other. And that's our mental health. And so it's so important for us to take care of it. But it's hard because it's not often considered a priority when it literally runs the show. Our brain does. And I'm excited to introduce Donnell Davis, our other panelist. If you would like to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Donnell Davis, and I am the Outreach Coordinator and Social Media Manager at NAMI Gulf Coast. And basically, we are out there to end the stigma behind mental health and help as many people as we can. And on a mental health journey, we provide resources and things like that. And mental health to me is just being able to control and take care of yourself psychologically, mentally, emotionally, and most importantly, taking that time to take self-care, because that's important. You can't help others without helping yourself first. And that's what's important to me. So
that's perfect. Yes. Amen to that. And Tarina, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name's Tarina. I'm program director for the NIA Cultural Center. I've worked closely with the Future Is Us since its inception. I'm also a board member for Vision Galveston and an advocate for mental health. What mental health means to me is really what does it mean for us to get to embody the best versions of what we deserve in a meaningful way. And that could look like anything for anybody, but for me, that's what comes to mind when I think of mental health.
Thank you. We all have our own versions of mental health, and that's what's great, because we're all individual people, and it influences us differently too. So that's perfect. And we're going to have more panelists coming in as we go, but let's get started. And I should also mention that we wanted to get feedback. So the whole purpose of tonight is to understand where Galveston is at for Black mental health. And so we sent out a survey last week. Feel free to continue doing the survey. We have it all over our Facebook, and fill it out we want to know what has been the Black experience in mental health in Galveston, or what hasn't it been, what's been helpful, not helpful here, what the barriers have been. And so tonight we wanted to start that conversation by just talking about some general questions that usually people have about mental health as it relates to being a Black person in America with mental health. It's everything to us. So let's get started. And so even though rates of mental illnesses in African Americans are similar to those of the general population, according to the American Psychiatric Association, only 1 in 3 African Americans receive the mental health care they deserve, adequate health care. What barriers have you seen in the community to accessing mental health resources? And this is open to any panelists. Feel free to jump in.
I think one of the main barriers is stigma behind it. In our community, a lot of our, I would say, growing up, we have no one to talk to. So that's a barrier in its own way, with our parents and our grandparents not actually believing that mental health is a real thing. Like oftentimes they see it as it being fake, or, just get over it, you'll be fine tomorrow. When in reality, we don't know how they will feel tomorrow or how they're feeling. And so it's a taboo subject in our community.
Yeah. I also add that onto that, or just pray it away. Pray, we rely heavily on the church, and that's something else as well. And then also, I know, in the Black community, whatever happens in the house stays in the house. And so I've noticed a lot of kids, just when I've interacted with, caring so much, but they don't want to talk about it because, again, like Anna said, it's kind of just shrug it off, be strong, and keep walking forward.
I've worked in case management services here in Galveston for outpatient mental health clinic, and then in community services. And also, I just finished my student master's in clinical mental health counseling. And so as a student intern, thank you. It's very exciting. But I've experienced people that have been hesitant to get therapy, Black people, people of color in the community, because there's not a therapist that looks like them. So not feeling that they'll be able to relate to the other person that you're pouring out your soul to. And especially if you've experienced any oppression, perhaps from a white person, and that's the predominant people that provide services. I could find the statistic for that. You're pretty limited in getting to a therapist that looks like you or that you feel comfortable with. And so that's definitely something that I've seen and I personally have experienced myself in wanting to get therapy.
I think another major factor is like not wanting to be labeled. Like I've experienced, because I've been treated for depression and things like that, it limited who I could receive prenatal care from. Or, it could disqualify you for different things, like you becoming a surrogate if you've ever been on antidepressants. And so there are those cultural things that we worry about with stigma, but there are also systemic things that stigmatize and other you. If you have a diagnosis, it can follow you. And that can also serve as a barrier for people to be apprehensive to access mental health.
Also, as far as barriers just here in town, I know that also for people who do not have the finances to afford private therapy, that although there are some resources available, often it takes quite a while to get scheduled and actually be seen. And if you have a need for hospitalization to be stabilized, there's no psychiatric beds on the island. So you got to leave. So you're leaving behind your family and other kind of support systems. And not to mention the fact that psychiatric stays are ridiculously short these days because of finances. I'm way older than everybody on this panel. I remember when people would be able to go and spend several weeks, if not months, in a hospital if they needed to. But that's just, those days are gone. So, but we don't even have a place on the island that you can go even for a couple of days to get stabilized. And that's definitely a barrier.
Yeah. And I think also you're so right. The wait lists. We have a bunch of we have mental health resources here in Galveston. We have them, but we don't have, there's just a wait list. It's so long and it's hard to reach everyone. And maybe we're not who knows? We'll find it. But
I just want to add to that, and hopefully Dr. Falls is trying to get on right now, so she can actually talk about the psychiatric wait list and inpatient, all that stuff. But yeah, just doing my pediatric rotation right now. The parents and the kids who've tried to reach out and get resources, like 6 to 8 month waiting lists, or some people can't. Like especially with youth, child and adolescent psychiatrists are very small, especially in the South. So. Where do they go? So,
and something also referrals for mental health. And so like in school, Black students are more likely to be referred for discipline reasons instead of counseling. And so they're being punished instead of being helped. And so that's something that goes with the misdiagnosis where we're not seeing things because also there's not been enough research done for Black mental health. So not really knowing what those symptoms perhaps look like or what the needs are for people, and over-diagnosing with conduct disorders or behavioral disorders instead of a mood disorder. And we've got another person on our call. Mr. Franklin Berry has hopped on, and I want to give a shout out because he is the reason that we are having our soul food session tonight. And so I'm so excited that Franklin, you're here. And if you want to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Franklin Berry. I'm a native of Galveston, Texas. Grew up here, and I have a salon on Market Street, Noche Berry Salon. We've been open since May of last year. And I'm so glad to see all of your wonderful faces, and thank you all so much for doing this. It's really needed in the community, and I knew that, but after sending that survey out and the responses that I got back, I was like, wow, people are very interested and they want more. Some people, aren't all the way there yet to share and, share their testimonies. But they want it. And again, thank you. I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up out of this, and looking forward to more of these. So again, thank you all, and I know that this is going to help a lot of people. I myself, I'm looking forward to getting help. I have family and friends that are as well. So again, thank everyone. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for bringing this. Franklin brought it up because just people were coming to you about where do I go for mental health, and we have the resources, but where do we go? And I don't know. Do you want to share about that, like the conversations that people were having with you that started this all?
Of course. Yeah. So, well, it started with myself. I am in therapy. I've been in therapy for the last 2 years, and uh, so my testimony is I was out with friends, and I was attacked from behind by a guy who was mentally ill. I didn't know what was going on, and it just happened. I wound up having to defend myself, and I'm not a confrontational type of person. Anyway, it messed me up really badly. So I had to start therapy because I just, my anxiety went through the roof. And I work with the public. I'm always standing up. People are always walking back and forth. People were coming up to me and I was jumping. It just messed me up. So I started going to therapy, and I saw a difference. And then when I moved home, I I was looking for a therapist here, and I wasn't able to find one. And then I was speaking with, my family members and friends, and they were all like having issues. Everybody's going through something between the pandemic, just regular stuff. Like everybody's got stuff, and people were looking for help, and there was no help, or that we could not find help. Everyone doesn't want to take medication. Some people just need to be heard, and I didn't know where to point them to. So I reached out to Jonathan, and he sent me a link. I sent that out. That was it. And then we started having this discussion about maybe we should like do a panel or find out how and where do we go, because I need help and I know people that need help. So initially that's how everything started, and we're here now, and I just have a really great feeling about this. I feel like even now I'm still working, so I had to run to the car and like jump on. But I was just telling one of the ladies in there, and she was telling me that her grandchild needs help, and that there's so many students in the school system that are suffering from so much stuff between social media, the pandemic, uh, probably school and puberty. Like these kids need help. So it's not just the adults, the children too. So like I said, I'm looking forward to this. Thank you all for like having it, taking the time out to be a part of it. And I'm so sorry I couldn't like be here like present the whole time, and because I wasn't expecting to be working this late. But yeah, so thank you again, and that's my story.
Thank you. And I think it's like a perfect segue because you're talking about the children, and my mentor, who I'm very grateful could join us today, Dr. Falls, is a child and adolescent psychiatrist here at UTMB. So, Dr. Falls, you want to introduce yourself?
You're mute. Doctor.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes. As Bianca said, my name is Dr. Falls, and I am a child psychiatrist with UTMB. I also do some adult work. So I do some collaborative work with family medicine residents. And then I do other types of collaborative work with a program called CPAN, which is Child Psychiatry Access Network. And with that, I'm available to pediatricians and family medicine docs. Basically, on those days, I'm available to them at any point during the course of that 8 to 5 time frame. Should they have a child that they're seeing for psychiatric reasons and have some questions or concerns that come up, we're available to basically provide guidance for them. And then I also do psychiatry for the university. So we see people down in like South Texas and supervise residents and teach medical students. So
you're busy. You're busy.
Yes.
And in the mental health in it. And so we asked earlier, and Franklin hit on some barriers in Galveston about accessing mental health resources. And so can you share what you've seen or maybe experienced in getting mental health services in Galveston?
So whether it's Galveston or pretty much most places in the United States, it's very difficult to get services, whether it's for adults or whether it's for children. Some of that has to do, well, most of it has to do with the fact that it's just, simple laws of supply and demand. So the demand is great and the supply is small. Psychiatry, there's a lot of people now, more medical students are wanting to go into psychiatry. But even with that increase in number, over the past several years, it still won't put a dent in the need for quite some time to come. And then specifically for child psychiatry, we have less people going into child. Some of that probably has to do with the fact that general psychiatrists now can often come out making just as much as child psychiatrists. And so to have to go to school for an additional year, it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but the cost of medical education has skyrocketed. So a lot of people are in so much debt, they're just trying to go ahead and get started. And you do get some child training in when you're, trained to be a general psychiatrist. And a lot of jobs, it kind of expect them to do some degree of child, but it's usually more teenagers. So it's a bit of a problem. And then to compound all of that, a lot of the child psychiatrists in the state of Texas are old. And so, really, they're concerned that they're going to be retiring soon. And it's not nearly enough to replace the amount of psychiatrists that are possibly going to be retiring within the next, let's say, 10 years or so. So they recognize it's a real problem. I've heard a few, various different things tossed around. Some of that is, they've kind of tossed out maybe trying to find a way to make it to where a child will fit into a 4-year type of format, because it's, 4 years if you want to be a general psychiatrist. They're also, I've heard, being tossed around as maybe doing some type of special loan repayment that would be an incentive to do that additional year. So it's a lot out there. Then, as I mentioned earlier about CPAN, Child Psychiatry Access Network, they know there's a shortage. We feel horrible that we can't be more available. So that is something that the state is providing funding for, to at least it's truly a Band-Aid, but put a Band-Aid on that need, but at least we can be available to pediatricians and family medicine docs. There's another program that's kind of all a part of that Texas Health Care Consortium called TCHAT. So TCHAT occurs in schools, and particularly Galveston. Again, it's a Band-Aid, but a little bit bigger Band-Aid than CPAN. So the parent, though, has to go to the school counselor and say, I want my child seen, through TCHAT. And so then they will give them an application. They complete that application, and they will see a TCHAT psychiatrist with your UTMB site for about 4 to 5 sessions. So basically, kind of the purpose of that is to get them seen by a psychiatrist, get them tweaked, and then they go back to the pediatrician or family medicine doc or PCP, in other words, to at least try to hold them until they can get in with, permanently with psychiatry. Now, let's say it's a year, because sometimes those wait lists are a year or more. And let's say they don't do as well 6 or 7 months down the road. They can go back through TCHAT and get another 5 sessions to tweak, what's going on with them. So I'm sorry, that was probably a long answer, but
it was informative. I didn't know.
And in Galveston, there's also, through the school district, they have a teen health clinic. So their wait list typically isn't nearly as long as, for instance, UTMB's wait list. So, yeah, the other thing that people need to be aware of that I've mentioned to people as well is that because it's so few psychiatrists, and especially child psychiatrists, even if someone stays in Texas or in the area, usually they're going to like if they're in private practice, they're going to like a cash pay practice very quickly. Because obviously, it's not just about money, but you do have all this overhead that you're kind of having to cover for yourself when you're in private practice. And so, having to have someone really follow up with insurance companies and make sure you get paid and things like that can get very, cumbersome. So basically they end up going to cash pay. Now, part of the problem, unfortunately, with that though, is so even if you find someone who can afford to pay, let's say they have insurance and they can afford to pay that out-of-pocket fee, when you go to reimburse, because the provider is a cash pay provider, usually that means that your insurance company, they're going to show up as out-of-network. So instead of getting reimbursed at 80%, you're going to get reimbursed at 50%. But that being said, there are a few resources still in like the Houston, Galveston area that Clear Lake coming this way. So it's not completely nothing there. And that's another resource that CPAM provides. So if a provider calls, they may not even need to see a psychiatrist. They just may want resources. So they can give you substance abuse resources. They often ask the provider for the child's insurance information. So then they can tell them which psychiatrist or therapist are taking their particular insurance as well.
That's wonderful. And we are sharing some resources. Before this, we shared some local mental health resources here in Galveston, and we're going to continue sharing those on our different Facebook pages. But you bring up a great point so like a psychiatrist, can you explain the different levels of, I guess, mental health, like what a psychiatrist does versus
versus a psychologist
versus a therapist versus even a social worker? Can they provide counseling versus Shanice and I were talking about like LMCW, like all the little abbreviations.
Yes. And that is a common question. You would think that, you think you're kind of by yourself that when you ask that, but a lot of people don't know the difference. Mm-hmm. And so a psychologist, they're going to have a PhD. They did not go to medical school. So a psychiatrist goes to medical school. So that means we have to deliver babies. We have to, do surgery. We're going to go through all the rotations that every other medical doctor goes through. And so whereas several years ago, psychiatrists were probably more likely to do therapy. It's kind of costly for us to do that. And so not very many people that psychiatry do it anymore, especially if you're working for an agency. Ones who are in private practice may still choose to do that. So a lot of agencies will delegate that to go about it in a more cost-efficient manner. So that's where your LPCs, like licensed professional counselors, or LMSWs, licensed master of social work,
talk therapy,
social workers, as the people who help you find resources and that kind. And you do have some social workers that still do that, but really a lot of them now do therapy. Psychologists can do therapy as well, but a lot of times they're not doing that very much anymore either. So they kind of have their own niche about where, what they do. So particularly if you're dealing with children, they're likely going to be doing things like psychoeducational testing.
Yep.
So they will determine if a child, for instance, has IDD, or if they have a learning disability, dyslexia or math disorder or something like that.
Autism.
Right, autism. They can do other forms of psychological testing, even in elderly people. Are they capable, they're testing for dementia, or if they're capable to live alone, or, all sorts of things like that. So they really kind of stay in that realm. Now, that being said, it's a bit of a controversy because other states outside of Texas, there are some other states where psychologists have been given the right to prescribe.
What?
Oh, yeah.
That's like my very difference. Psychiatrists, they can give you medications. Psychologists can't. But like, I didn't know outside of Texas. Okay.
Yes, and that's been for a while. I know probably at least 20 years. I think
Wow.
Louisiana, and I can't remember who was Louisiana. It was another state that was one of the first couple of ones. And so it's been, when you look in various different states where that hasn't been the case, it's very contentious every year when states, the state representatives are meeting because both sides are trying to, kind of go back and forth. Obviously, the psychiatrist saying, look, it's more to what we do than just writing medication. There's a reason why we have to go to medical school, because many things can present and look like a psychiatric illness that's really not a psychiatric illness. And then the other side is saying, okay, y'all are saying there's such a shortage. This is a way of meeting that shortage. And I don't know about all of the details around it because it's been a while since I really looked into it. But at one point, I know when I looked into it, I think it was for the Louisiana one, New Mexico, I think was the other state. They had a lot of requirements that they added on for the psychologist to be able to prescribe. And in a sense, kind of by the time they did all those extra things, they probably might as well have just gone to medical school. And then sometimes they were limited in what they could see or do. But obviously from a psychiatrist standpoint, sometimes that's even tricky. Even when you let nurse practitioners, because even let's say with nurse practitioners, they can, we have psychiatric nurse practitioners. And so even nurse practitioner training has kind of changed somewhat over the years. And the supervision is kind of nebulous in terms of what the requirements are for that. And so if you're limiting them to certain types of cases, let's say basic ADHD, anytime I see any kid, no matter how basic it is, even if it's basic ADHD, we still have to ask you about depression, bipolar, psychosis, all sorts of things. And I can't tell you how many times that I'm thinking I'm doing a basic ADHD eval, and then I find out the kid is psychotic or bipolar, and and you're going, okay, they don't really understand me. They don't really understand what I'm saying, and they do understand what you're saying, and they really are hearing voices, but they didn't say anything to anybody because the voices were threatening them or telling them, So sometimes what sounds like it's simple isn't always simple. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not a place for those particular disciplines, because there is a shortage, but it means that it really has to be everybody coming to the table and really thinking through this and trying to make sure that we meet the needs, but we do it safely.
Yeah, and accurately, and provide the culturally competent care too. Something I want to mention also before we get back into mental health is that we have some door prizes for people that have joined in, and two $50 gift cards are going to be called out. Panelists, you can enter. So
I can answer? Yeah, please add my name to that $50 gift card. Thank you.
So we're doing drawings. And Tanisha Martinez is going to pick two names. And Tanisha, do you want to announce them?
Tanisha, you know where to.
Can you? No. We couldn't hear you.
The first one is Paul Corville.
Okay, Mr. Paul Corville. All right.
Laura Harper.
Oh, that's not bad. Y'all, so that shade is because Clara can't get one. That's her sister. But maybe Cora will take you out to dinner.
She won't.
Well,
congrats.
A $75 Target gift card also. And I'll be sure to announce at the end who these cards are from. But right now, they're escaping me.
Okay, Tanisha, Target.
Also, yeah. That Clarence right.
All right.
Jamaro Cuffy. Say that again, Jamaro Cuffy.
Jamara, that's my mama.
Oh.
Hold on. Let me text my siblings because they should be here.
Really, yeah. What is that if you're related to
Nepotism?
Nepotism, yeah.
And if you want to
That's so
enter
funny.
to win, just put your name in our comments and you'll be entered into a drawing.
Tanisha, type my name.
We have a lot more cards, a lot more giveaways, really cool, fun ones. Well, let's keep this conversation going. And research has found that African Americans are often misdiagnosed and more likely to experience somatization, the manifestation of physical illness related to mental health, to influencing their diagnosis and medications that they may be prescribed. And so a lot of people, Franklin brought up that they're just afraid I'll go get mental health and then I'll just be prescribed a medication. So what are your guys' thoughts about mental health and medication? Anybody can answer. Clara?
I agree. A couple years ago, I had never dealt with mental health or anxiety or depression or anything like that. But a couple years ago, I had crazy anxiety. I don't know where it came from. I literally was taking a shower on my way to church and I called my husband into the bathroom. I thought I was having a heart attack. I thought I was going to die. So bad that I had him call 911. They brought me to the ER and the first thing they said was, it's just anxiety. I didn't know what was going on. So no one was calmly trying to speak to me. They never sent anyone into like a psychiatrist to speak to me to see what was going on. They just diagnosed me with anxiety. Literally, my heart rate had been like 130, which is crazy. So the first thing they wanted to do was put me on anxiety medicine before evaluating me, just based on physically. They just told me that, which I absolutely believe it, because when I tell you, I had no idea what was going on, and they didn't even try to refer me to a psychiatrist. I literally for 2 months was in the emergency room probably 3 times a week without getting any other help besides it's just anxiety, go home. Here's some medication. I absolutely believe that.
And it completely changes the care, and you weren't receiving the proper care that you wanted.
Right.
And it goes to the importance of hearing and listening to your patient, your client, because African Americans are more likely to go to their physical healthcare doctor for something, and so that leads to the misdiagnosis. I mean, but research does show that psychiatric medications are helpful, just depends on the situation, but it's not something that can just be lightly done because it is a serious thing. Psychiatric medications and talk therapy go very well.
Yeah.
It's just different
It's
for different.
actually the best is when you do both therapy and have medication.
Yeah.
It's right
A
together.
lot of people, it's hard to not get discouraged because especially with things like bipolar disorder, it's a matter of finding that right dosage and that right combination of medication.
Right.
And so that in itself, all of those trips, having to take off of work, having to schedule the appointments to go back and talk to your doctor to figure out what's the right dosage for you during that phase of your life. Because if you get pregnant or if you move or if you have a major social change, you know, it's great for us to know, like, okay, both of these are helpful. How do we not get discouraged in pursuit of finding what that looks like for us, you know?
Yeah. So go ahead.
I think that the miscommunication is when they aren't told to have communication, when they are just told take this medication, but not told here's someone you can go speak to, or you absolutely need to go speak to someone while you take this medication. That's where I was lost. Like, okay, so what do I do? Just take this and I'm okay? I'm perfect?
Let me add to that, and definitely what Shanice said is true, but I also know that this happens to all races, not just African American races, because psychiatry as a whole sometimes has been really kind of anybody who comes in, oh, that's psych. And it will somewhat tend to kind of blow it off without a reasonable explanation. Now, generally, before they ever tell you that, it's just that I don't even know how much that gets transmitted, especially if you're in the middle of a panic attack. Like anything they tell you is kind of going over your head at that moment because you feel like you're dying. But they're supposed to do a full medical workup on you to rule out. And sometimes it's happening, but you don't realize that's happening. Like they get blood and they stick these stickers on your chest and they're doing all this stuff and you're not realizing that that's all a part of a workup, and maybe no one's taking the time to do that. Emergency rooms are, even before COVID, and everybody in medicine, it's about more and kind of producing more, seeing more. And in the ER, they're kind of measured on how long patients are sitting there, and they're supposed to be, they get really kind of dinged if they're not moving people fast enough. And so I think sometimes they can, in a hurry, forget that this person doesn't really understand all of this. Then you compound the fact that many of them already know that, okay, if they give you a referral, they know that it's going to be forever before you're able to get in. Mm-hmm. So I have known doctors that just kind of, not just even in the ER, just kind of say, I've stopped referring because, like, what's the point? I just try to manage it myself if they're, PCP, because it's like, it's too long. And then it depends on your insurance status. At least if you have insurance, you might be able to get in somewhere sooner. But if you have Medicaid, if you have no insurance, it gets even more difficult if you can't financially afford this. So unfortunately, they give you meds and send you on your way without really giving you the things that are needed. And I've seen that, not just, like I said, with African Americans, I've seen it in everybody.
Mm-hmm. But that also can just, again, increase the stigma and scariness of it, because psychiatric meds do have side effects and that do need to be talked about. You have to have that discussion because, usually within the first few weeks, you are going to feel some type of side effects, but it doesn't mean it's not working, especially with psychiatric medications. And so it's unfortunate. I'm sorry you had that experience, but I hope, at this point, your anxiety is managed. Sounds like panic disorder. I don't know, Dr. Falls.
Right. But again, without truly, having a full workup, we can't.
Full workup of cardiac causes and stuff. Now let's do our whole.
Sometimes people, it may look completely like a panic disorder, and it could be any number of things, to be honest.
True.
It could be that you're having an MI, but they'll look at someone young and say, well, it's no way they're probably having an MI.
But they have to do the EKG as soon as you come in, regardless.
Exactly. They're supposed to. And so that's why, I don't know. So they can usually rule that out pretty quickly. And with blood work, usually we're going to look at your thyroid to make sure you're not having hyperthyroidism, because that can look especially just like a panic attack if your thyroid is super high. It's just any number of things that they will usually want to rule out to make sure that before they say this is a panic attack.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Perfect. Another giveaway. All right, we've got another giveaway.
This
is a $25 Starbucks card from Councilwoman Sharon Lewis. Thank you. We're gonna get that drawing going. Oh, thank you, Tanisha. Yes, shake it up, make it fair. Yeah.
Picking up
Martha Winters.
Martha Winters. All right, Martha, you just got a $25 Starbucks gift card.
Martha, I'm going to put our email address in the chat. If you could email me how we can get that to you, please let me know.
Certainly. And we can do another one right now.
$75 combo, Taco Bell, Domino's, and Popeyes.
Okay, so this is a $75 combo to Taco Bell, Popeyes, and Domino's. I didn't know that was a thing. So here we go. Oh, which we originally wanted this to be a community dinner so that we could eat and have a real soul food session talking about mental health and our souls. But due to COVID, which I hope everyone's out there staying safe, we decided to move to a virtual panel for everyone's safety. But you can still get dinner on us after our session tonight.
I'm trying to get dinner, but they shot picking my name. It's fine.
Naisha Holloway.
All right, Ms. Naisha Holloway, you just got a $75 gift card to 3 different places. So we will keep on moving on. And something that's important is addiction. Substance use disorders influence our mental health, and it is a mental health situation. So does anyone want to speak on what your thoughts are about the current treatment for substance use disorders, substance use treatment in Galveston in general? This is something that maybe not a lot of people know about. Well, I know that the Gulf Coast, I think that is a barrier here in Galveston, that there's not a lot of substance treatment facilities here. I know that I think there's a Narcan clinic in Texas City. There's nothing locally on the island for anyone. And so that's a concern. I know that you can get outpatient services from the Gulf Coast Center. But hey, does anyone on the panel have anything to say about substance use or substance abuse disorders? And I think it's also important to talk about how many people don't receive treatment for substance use or substance abuse because they think it just becomes a part of your daily routine. If you start drinking or smoking or doing anything that's not healthy or safe for you, gambling, that's an addiction. Social media, that's an addiction. If you are continuously doing something that's taking away from your life and that you're not able to focus elsewhere, it becomes normalized. So sometimes if we normalize these things like the drinking, TikTok and stuff like that, then we're not out there getting help for it because we don't think that we need to get help for it. And especially I think substance use is a big thing in all communities because it's generational. So if you see your mom drinks at night and every night, or your dad's drinking every night, that's just normal. When possibly like that could really be impacting your health, your family's health, and how you treat each other.
Plus, it also kind of overlaps with what we were talking about earlier about with medication and these other things, because quite often the person is self-medicating through use of the substance in the first place. And that's what leads to the addiction, but it starts with something that could have been dealt with therapy or proper medication.
Yeah. And it just occurred to me too.
Oh, you can go ahead.
Okay. That some people might think, okay, what if I have a substance problem or an addiction problem? Maybe people don't know that gambling is an addiction. Social media is now being considered an addiction. Internet use. Okay, so where do I go? Do I have to go to rehab? So now I have to take off work for a month? Like, people don't know that you can get outpatient services, or going and getting talk therapy is something that can help. And actually AA, we have AA here on the island. There's a lot of different ways to treat substance use now. It's not just AA, a 12-step program. There's a lot of different ways that you can work on substance use. Tarina, you were talking.
And I think a piece, with mental health, but especially and including like substance abuse, a big piece that's missing is like those like environmental factors that contribute to it, like finances or secure housing or food, just access to basic needs that oftentimes you're told you're not able to receive public assistance unless you're clean. And that does not help people get clean. Like telling people we're not going to allow you any access to stability or any access to these things that you need in order to not die. It doesn't incentivize, and this is research-based. This isn't just my personal opinion. This is, you can, find peer-reviewed articles if you are friends with somebody with institutional access. If you're not, email one of us. We'll get you a PDF. But, these are things that aren't recognized often on a social level because it's treated as a morality issue, but they're also not recognized or honored within our policies. And that could be as high up as things that are funded federally, but also as locally as what are the restrictions on our individual organizations that they put in place due to individual beliefs that may not be informed by the same information. And some of those may be tied to federal funding, but not all of them.
That's a really good point.
So you all might, I don't know if you all are familiar with Bakota.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is another resource. And if you go to their website, they'll kind of show you like where all they provide services to school districts, to communities, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of times that's at least a good place to start with, you know, sending someone to figure out what specifically, what type of service do they need.
Perfect. Thank you for that. And so something that has been on everyone's mind is COVID-19, and it has been a super stressful time for everyone. And what has been your experience with the impact COVID-19 has had on people's mental health?
Well, I know that the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and like the Children's Hospital Association, they actually came together and wrote a letter calling it a national state of emergency because of the toll COVID is taking on our youth, and just increased amount of anxiety, depression, which, you know, we can imagine a lot of youth are isolating themselves. And it's honestly very, I guess, sad. Even just talking with some of our youth here in the community, you can tell that their mental health is taking a toll, which is the reason why these sessions are important, to try to kind of encourage our Black families to reach out before it gets worse. So, COVID.
Yes, even prior to the pandemic, there was like this escalating rate of suicide in teenagers as a whole. Minority youth, even greater, if you will. And so then COVID-19 really kind of, I think just really kind of shine a light on how things were really going. And in some ways, it hasn't been all bad. So some of the things that have not been great is that obviously for kids who are abused, or women who are abused, or other people who are abused for that matter, especially when we were in that lockdown mode, those victims did not have an opportunity to be at school or at work and escape. So you're at home all day long with your abuser. So they do feel that abuse went up during this time period. Some of the positives, in a sense, though, is that not everybody did poorly during the pandemic. Now, education-wise, I think that has been probably one of the biggest pitfalls, especially for people who have, if you're ADHD, learning disabilities. A lot of schools, especially after that first go around, I started kind of telling parents, look, you probably need to try to get into one of the online, that's already established online schools. Because I think we're going to still be in the same place when school starts in August. And I don't know, for various, whether it's financial reasons or whatever the case may be, that some schools are going to adapt. And because everybody really thinks we're going to be out of this, but I don't. And then they're trying to get into a school and they're already full. And so that's kind of where we went, because in seeing kids, it was a big range. Like some kids didn't feel like they were missing a beat, because schools were telling teachers like, okay, look, set up a whole Zoom classroom, and they were being taught just like normal. Other kids, it went to the other extreme where it was nothing. Like you had packets that you could pick up as a parent of work and said, have at it, So it was kind of sad that some kids really, honestly, just lost like a whole year and a half. That can't see how we're going to get that back for those children.
Mm-hmm. Tanisha, do you want to say anything about COVID's impact on like mental health and student being a young person?
It's like very stressful. Like it heightens your anxiety about like being in a school, but like once you get used to it, you start to adapt to it. But I don't know like about everybody. That's just me. But in the schools, personally, I think it's crazy how they're like keeping them like open because we've had so many cases. Like they give us COVID like daily updates in our emails every day, and they're just coming back like more and more. Like it's a lot.
And that's what I meant by for some people or some kids, it wasn't all bad. Like our kids who suffer from social anxiety disorder or panic attacks, they were kind of liking being at home. Now that wasn't good for their anxiety because that's feeding and strengthening the anxiety, but they felt a lot better. Kids who are being bullied, they felt better being at home. But for some kids, just the thought of having to go back, whether they had like a true anxiety or even just being real, that they're terrified to go back into a setting where, especially once the school starts saying, well, you don't have to really wear a mask. You don't have to be, some schools said if a person tests, is positive for COVID, they don't have to even tell anybody.
They don't have to tell anybody. That's scary.
And that I think was what was scary because some kids, they have grandparents at home.
Yeah.
Or they have siblings at home that, may have some type of medical condition that for them, if they bring COVID home, it's like huge. We forget that a lot of kids lost parents and a lot of kids lost both parents.
Both parents, yeah.
That is just unimaginable about how you overcome that. And for teenagers where it's about everything is so social for them, that was really hard. Now, I also feel like it's a teachable moment because being older, I'm kind of from a different generation where, things were a little bit tougher and you had to kind of, just be with it. And I think what we used to hear is a lot of African-American parents say, I want my kids to not go through what I went through. But then it almost went to the other extreme, and not just with African-American parents, but with, generationally as a whole, where we made it to where our kids had it almost too soft. And so therefore, now that we've had some adversity, they really struggle with that. Whereas for African Americans from my generation, we, and even well before, had so much adversity that it does kind of prepare you. It's kind of like, if you've ever played sports, if you kind of make it too easy on that person, when it's time, we see the Super Bowl, we see, the end goal, and it's like, oh, I want to be, this person or that person. You don't see, I think LeBron James has a commercial out now where he's saying like, kind of like, you don't see, this is what I'm doing kind of behind closed doors. And so I think it's a time to really start helping we need to provide the resources for them, but we need to help them cope so that, the next time, because it'll be even if this gets over and we finally eventually come out of it, you'll have another crisis in your life at some point. So we need to be working on giving them the skills so that they get stronger and can handle what comes, their way.
Yeah. And COVID has been stressful. Bianca, you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to say that was a good point because when we had those 2 COVID panels with Dr. Kuderoth, we did, each one we talked about, Dr. Falls, we sent out a survey to our youth, and they always voiced like losing grandparents, losing parents, like just losing someone at such a young age. I can only imagine how traumatic that is, but then to be expected to perform well at school when you've lost a primary caregiver. I think the stat was like 140,000 kids have lost like a primary or secondary caregiver. And yeah, exactly. So I don't know, Dr. Falls. I mean, you can prepare since I don't know if I could have been ever prepared to lose someone in middle school, like a dad or a mom.
That I don't think you can prepare for. So that's not necessarily what I'm talking about because, I'm older and I've lost both my parents, in adulthood, and it's nothing you can ever prepare for. I guess my point, though, is that we want to, we've kind of talked about, I know this can be very controversial, but, years ago, people had to, I've talked to other people about it where, if there was for instance, when I was growing up and they had field day, there was a winner and there was, a first, second, third place winner. And then things started changing. So we'll have, participation awards, and we've made things sometimes. So we're trying to protect children so much that we can almost like protect them too much. We don't allow them to feel any negative things and learn how to manage and work through adversity. because let's face it, life will be, you're going to have adversity. It doesn't have to be COVID. Long before COVID, that was still adverse things that were going to happen. But, you know, you don't want to blow it off because there are two extremes where people just suck it up and grow up. No. This is real. This is, you know, and parents need to have ways to cope. Teachers need to have ways to cope. And, you know, schools, whoever works with children need to be able to provide coping skills. But what I am saying is that COVID is here. So what can you figure out and what can we learn? How do we make our children more resilient? How do we kind of reduce some of their fears? You know, we want them to have, because you're seeing kind of two extremes out there. Maybe people who are just super, super anxious and just, you know, horribly fearful, to the other extreme that you like, do you realize there's a pandemic going on? And we want you somewhere in between. We want there to be a healthy appreciation for this virus, so that you can cope, you can still function, but be smart about how you function and to care about your fellow man as we do this and realize that we're all in this together and we're going to have to work together to come out of it.
That's true.
I think you make a really good point related to the resiliency thing. And in my opinion, a lot of it has to do with the baseline of where people were before COVID in the first place. So if they were already dealing with a lot of ACEs, the adverse childhood experiences already, and so then having to have layered on top of that a pandemic versus someone who was fairly stable in the first place. I agree with you, Dr. Falls, that it actually has presented us with an opportunity to build resiliency. We've had to be resilient. We've had to be adaptable because things change constantly. Even this panel we're having right now, you know, there was this whole plan that we had to completely throw out and do over last week. And so there are many of us, myself included, who I think have improved our ability to be resilient out of necessity, and that is a positive thing.
Exactly.
I think we just have to kind of have sort of a separate category from those who were already at risk, to use a different term, in the first place, who have just gotten pushed over that line. Yes. Maybe we're barely functioning,
right?
and are in serious need of help.
Yeah, and again, I just want to be clear. It's not that I'm saying blow it off, but how can you say sometimes when things are just really bad? I mean, okay, they're just bad.
Yes.
Right. But if you sit up, because I think for everybody, you know, I can just use myself as an example. You know, in the beginning of the pandemic, I mean, you know, everybody was kind of like glued to the TV and you're watching, and just like someone else said, they're getting emails. We're getting, you know, constant emails and, you know, whatnot. And so sometimes it's frustrating because I'm getting all this information and you're looking at family members or other people, you know, that's just like not really taking this very seriously. And at some point, though, you know, I had to say, because people were sending little positive things. Sometimes you really have to work and you have to teach other people to work to look for these positives. So like when China completely shut down in the beginning, some of you all may have seen this because it was like circulating on the internet. Birds came back for the first time because there's so much smog there and, you know, pollution that birds just weren't there. Can you imagine for a child who's never seen a bird before? That's my point. Venice, we think about how beautiful Venice is, right? Okay, I never even really thought about when I saw this, like the water is normally very murky and disgusting. Again, when COVID came around and everything really shut down, they're like, the dolphins started coming back and they were like so excited seeing all these beautiful water animals that they hadn't seen in forever. So it's not to say that you're trying to discount what people are going through, but because it's so bad, if you don't look for something positive in this, I personally just said, you know, my work schedule is a lot different than what it used to be at previous jobs. And so when I got here, it was, and I'm more spread out and, you know, whatnot, just because of geographically how Houston Galveston is. And my health just went, you know, within a 2-year period. And so, you know what I said? I said, okay, wait a minute. I haven't been taking care of me. And everybody tells us about, you know, we get all these lectures about how you need to take care of you, except they really, you know, your workload is kind of hard to make it take care of you, right? But you know what COVID did for me? It said, you better take care of you. So my sister and I got out there and started, because I used to exercise a lot before I started. If I had extra time, and I started making extra time, and I found that my stress was relieved a lot better. And because I started working, we're working more from home to protect us. Well, then I wasn't eating donuts because I wasn't buying donuts. My sister and I started enjoying riding bikes together. And so that turned into a 20 to 30 pound weight loss for both of us.
Okay, Dr. Bob.
I tell you, like, it doesn't have to all be bad, but if you don't share good with people, if you don't show them that we can get through this, or okay, let's take our lemons and turn it into lemonade. It sounds really very, right, but it's real. Because otherwise you're going to sit there and just be depressed and stressed out, and you need to watch the news, but you're going to have to limit how much you watch.
That's true.
You will be depressed right now.
That's true.
Set your boundaries.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Oh, it's that line between like gratitude and toxic positivity. Like you'll see those, and I'm a millennial, so I see those. I don't want to speak for other people. Those posts on Facebook, acknowledging toxic positivity is when something really terrible is happening, and everyone's just like, "Oh, it's okay," just feel better about it. And it's like, no, you can acknowledge something really bad is going on and still be able to name what you still have. Like those things coexist, they don't cancel out. You can be having a really hard day and be thankful that you have a bed, or be thankful that somebody made you have a really good laugh. And like a practice that's helping me is replacing the word but with and. So instead of the practice of, oh, I'm really stressed out, but at least dinner's already at home. It's no, I'm really stressed out and dinner's already at home.
Yeah.
Like, these things are coexisting. They're not canceling out. And it's been, for me, a healthy practice of being like, and this is how we hold space for feeling crappy and still taking care of ourselves.
That's
like,
true.
We don't have to there's nothing romantic about it. We don't have to romanticize it. We can just exist authentically and learn how to sit with discomfort. And I feel like that helps kind of move out of this space of either coddling ourselves or coddling, because I'm also a mother. And so I think about these things in the context of how do I want to raise my child to know how to get through a bad day, know it was a bad day, sit with it, process it, and still not be completely defeated by it, kind of thing.
And I think some of where I come from with even trying to build resilience and what can we learn from this, again, sometimes to the younger generation, it might seem like we're being kind of, hard or whatever, but that has been one good thing about my job, and what you see in academics. They force you and force us to really critically evaluate what you do.
Yeah.
And so if something went wrong, they're trying to teach us, okay, don't get so just tripped out about what you did. Okay, let's look and see what we did wrong. I do PALM 3, practice of medicine, and we kind of go through various different, topics that happen in the course of medicine. And one of the things they talk about when they talk about medical errors is that, other things in life, let's say airlines, other types of areas like that. When a plane crashes, they have to sit down and go, okay, what went wrong? And you're trying to avoid finger pointing, but okay, how did we get here? How can we make sure this doesn't happen again? Something else may happen that will cause it to crash, but we don't want it to crash for this reason again. And when you stop looking at it as a finger pointing and you start looking at, I want to critically assess, what did we do good? What did we not do so well? And how do you want to change that? When you stop analyzing, your fault, we're in this together. How do we not get here again?
Yeah.
Having a growth mindset and thinking that I can overcome, or this isn't it. There's more. I can always keep growing, learning, and not being fixed in our ways is so important. And I hadn't thought about the positives of COVID, because I just think, it's been hard, but you're right. I walked more. Got a dog.
We went on beach walks.
We did beach walks. I mean, there were.
I got to actually see you more. I'm not in school, so I go see you.
But and there have been positives. It brought families together. I think it's also made people realize their priorities, like what is important to you.
Yes.
We've had time.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I definitely do that.
And if you don't, I found that when I started thinking about the positives, I felt better. It gives you hope. When you're thinking about the negatives, all the negatives, if you're not careful, you'll just feel like it's hopeless. We're never going to get out of this. We're going to be in COVID forever. Everybody's going to die. I mean, it just starts spiraling. It's like like a ladder, and it just ladders up. Whereas when you force yourself and train your brain to think, some people are that way automatically, but most of us are not. And you have the people that's way on the other extreme that kind of falls in that mental health range. But because think about it, most of us migrate towards negative.
Yeah.
It's easier to be negative.
It's easier.
Why do you think they have clickbait?
Just break stuff.
Yeah, just like
who did what, and that's what takes you down the rabbit hole, right? But all the great stuff, it has to be a really great twist for you to click on it. So before you know it, negativity can just really grow. I mean, I have to work at, truly, even as a psychiatrist, I have to work at that. And so when I started seeing this stuff, it literally brought tears to my eyes when I saw people singing to, the doctors, because in the beginning they would try to pick out a few positive news stories. And I was like, wow, you got to reach for the positive, or you will really believe that it's all negative. And if you think about those people who, as it was mentioned earlier, already were in trouble before the pandemic, if they're hanging on to a thread and then all of this happens, you just kind of snatch what little hope they had. You have to give those people hope.
Yeah,
that's true.
And I think that's important too about talking. We've hit on these ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. Now it's ACEs, adverse childhood community experiences. And so COVID, the pandemic, would be considered a community experience. Galveston specifically, our hurricanes, those are adverse community experiences that are traumatic. They can be traumatic. They influence everyone differently. But ACEs, the more ACEs that you experience in childhood, like having a parent that has a substance use disorder, an incarcerated parent, living in poverty, food insecurity, housing instability, a divorced parent, I can keep thinking of things. These are all ACEs. And so the
domestic violence, exposure to violence, domestic violence, all that. Yeah.
Yes. Racism is experiencing racism is an adverse childhood experience. And so the more of these ACEs that you experience, the more it wears on your mental health. And so that's something that's important to realize. And for all of us just to know, I don't know if we know this, but to highlight that you're so right. People before COVID that were experiencing like ACEs before COVID kind of isolated a lot of people and made some of their experiences even harder.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's something positive also that kind of came out of COVID in the midst of the stress with the I didn't mention, for those of you who don't know, that I direct an after-school music academy. And so when we went online, it was extremely stressful because none of our music teachers had ever taught music online. And that's a whole thing because of internet lag. But one unexpected thing, even though we all knew that, there are so many intrinsic benefits of music for kids, what was unexpected is that we started having parents telling us, thank you so much that you're still doing this. So many people assumed we were shut down because we found out that we were becoming more of a lifeline for a lot of kids. And I think that the reason I call it a positive is because I think it gave the staff more of a sense of purpose. That I'm not just maintaining this thing, I'm not just keeping this going, but I'm serving this additional purpose for some of these children. And that, all of us want to have a sense of having a greater sense of purpose and calling. And so that was a positive in the midst of something super stressful. And it's ongoing, continuing.
Yeah.
So right. And so we said that this would go until 8, so that's in 15 minutes, but we can keep this conversation going, which is, I mean, it's going great. And this will not be our only soul food session. This is just a snack. We're going to keep mental health. I know you guys have heard me say it. I'm going to keep saying it. But let's talk. Donnell, something that we talked about even starting this was that we don't have a lot of Black mental health representation and just men in general in social services, in mental health. So can you speak on, not to put everything on you, but what are your thoughts?
Oh, no, I actually agree. Because the other day I was in a mental health first aid training, and I think there was a total of 17 people, and I was the only male, but I was the only Black male there as well. And so I think that's something that needs to be addressed, and it's getting better. Obviously, he's fully into that. I just recently came into mental health. Before I didn't do it as much, but I had a cousin that committed suicide, and so it really helped me come towards this path, and I'm really glad that I'm here. But I think it needs to be more people. Black males commit suicide at a higher rate than other races, so it's something that we need. I think if people see more Black males in the industry helping, going out, doing events and stuff like that, they'll open up more about it. And that's really what we're taught growing up, to keep everything inside, not to talk about it. You know, you'll be better tomorrow, or you'll be a man, grow up. You know, things like that. But it affects us just the same as everybody else, and it's just our part to learn that and to share with others. So
You were so right. And I think, and that's you're so right. Like, often you're the man of the house, and so like that responsibility, like being told that so much, and then it's like, I'm the man of the house, okay, so I'm not gonna say what's wrong. Or and I'm the fatherhood. The Family Service Center has a fatherhood program for free therapy for fathers and father figures in Galveston County, and it's a lot of men just don't feel that they can talk, like you said, about mental health, like what their feelings are. And also, I'm the fatherhood outreach person. I'm a woman. So, like, as a man, gonna want to talk to me about what it's like to be a father. I don't have kids. And so it's just, it's such a need.
Even our Black male youth, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but you know, it's easier for us to talk to, I want to say, because most of the time the person that we are able to talk to is our moms. So you as a black woman, there actually helps in a way. So that doesn't not negative for you. I wouldn't use that.
I was gonna say, like, I've realized when I've connected with some Black male youth in Galveston, and I do ask about it, they do open up a lot more. And like you said, if they have a strong connection with their mom, then they're able to go to it. But if they don't, then they're not. And then some of like the comments from some of our youth in like the Future Sus is like they want people to, like some of the males, they said that they wanted us to check in with them more. And so I think that also goes to the fact that things may be going on in their lives that we don't know, or they can't share, or they can't express to anybody else. And so, yeah, definitely one of those things with our Black males and stuff. So, but shout out to you, Shanice. Fatherhood. No, honestly, it's important. I mean, it really is. I mean, I feel like I've heard of 2 cases in the past year of Black males, and everybody's like, who committed suicide, young adults. And all the friends are just like, didn't know they're struggling so much, or prominent individuals. And, you know, it's important.
And suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for Black men, young Black men. And so it's just, we have to, and the survey responses for the questionnaire, which you can continue to keep doing, a lot of people said they want to talk more about mental health. Like, just, it's what is it to you? We need to have more conversations about it. People want to talk about it, but it's just finding the space or the people to, or starting that conversation. You can even have it with your own family. Maybe they want to have it, but it's just being afraid to say something.
Talking about another positive from COVID, that's been one. And what I mean by that is, people are ashamed to kind of talk about mental health. But then if you give them a legitimate reason, so like everybody's saying, okay, because everybody's dressing in COVID, like this is scary, so it should be whatever.
Right.
People are more open now to say, yeah, let's talk about mental health. And so I don't think it feels so stigmatized now when you have something looming as large as COVID. And even if there's some of the real reason why they needed to get in, because it was there before COVID, nobody has to know that was there before COVID.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think an issue with young Black males, especially those who are raised in single parent families, is if they see their mom stressed out and having to deal with mental health issues or having to deal with the home period, they tend to not want to bring what they're feeling on her as well. And that's a big thing. Like I am married. I have 3 Black sons, but my oldest son, he's a senior, and this is a big year for him. His last 2 years have been stressful, and I've noticed that. But me as a parent, I worked at UTMB, and I had to take, when they sent the kids home from school, that's when I was like, I'm going to have to leave. I was there for 7 years. I was like, if there's little boys home from school, there's little girls home from school, and that ain't happening here. So I took that time off, and I quit my job and stayed home with these kids. And I saw that they're just sitting on a computer. When you're working and then you come home, you're dealing with the house not being clean, whatever. But when you see what's going on in your home full time, that's a whole nother story. And when you can actually sit and watch your children and see the expression on their face while they're doing schoolwork, or when they're literally skipping school in front of you and you got to stop that situation, because that happened a lot. My kids were skipping school in front of me and I had to get off my phone and actually pay attention. But my son, I would have to ask him, like, last year was a terrible school year for him. He's the kind of kid who straight A honor roll student, but he's a last minute kid. So we did do that we went from being in GISD to going to an online school that was already established, which I would say for some kids is a no-no, because my son's the kind of kid who would, if they give him 100 assignments to do, he's going to wait until those 100 assignments are due. He will get straight A's. I'll give him that. But one class, my son actually had to do 100 assignments in 2 days. He got them done and he got straight A's. But could you imagine the stress that puts on a child?
Yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy, but he did it. And he passed, but now he's having to make that up socially, mentally, emotionally this year. And it's hard. Now, right now, like, I'm stuck in my bedroom because I'm on quarantine. I don't want to get started on that, but my son was like, I can't miss school, Mom. And I'm like, you have no choice. You can't put other kids at risk. And he's just scared because he's like, he knows he messed up last year. He doesn't want to do that again this year. But who does he talk to? Because when he tries to send emails and tries to talk to his teachers, he's blown off half the time. There's actually an incident where a teacher had pointed out a student who wasn't vaccinated, and talked all kinds of trash to her in front of the other students because she wasn't vaccinated. That causes mental health issues. Like, now this child is stigmatized because that's not like, there's so much that's going on. But when it comes to boys and their moms, I can see them talking to her more and leaning on her more, but I also see them not, because they see what she's going through.
Mm-hmm. And that's important. And adultification. So like sometimes like children being exposed to adult things, parentification, that is an ACE. So like if your child is talking to your kid about the bills or your relationship problems, that's stressful. That child is taking that on, and they want to keep the peace in the home, so they're not going to put their stress out on you, mom
Right.
or dad.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. And I think also, you know, when you hear people talking about the Great Migration, I think this is part of why that's been, because people got home and realized, wait a minute, my kid needs more than what I can give if I'm still trying to be at work. And a lot of people started downsizing, doing whatever they had to do to make sure that one parent was at home being there, where you are really a part of your child's life. And don't get me wrong, Black males are definitely needed, but he brings up a good point. If we know there's a shortage, I mean, we can't squeeze blood up a turnip. What we do know is that kids know when they're loved. They know when they're cared about.
Yeah.
They get mad at you on to them and providing rules and structure, but yet they need rules and structure. And that's one thing we have to try to teach parents, like they're not supposed to like you right now.
Yeah.
You know, I like to joke with parents and say when kids are about 10 or 11 or so, you know, or maybe a little bit younger, you hang the moon. Then when they get to teenage years, all of a sudden, like overnight, you become really stupid. You don't know anything. And then in your 20s, your parents are still kind of stupid, but they got a little bit smarter. And when you get in your 30s,
wow,
they really went a little bit smarter. When you're in your 40s, your parents were geniuses.
I have never felt so stupid than I do right now with these kids. I feel like I need to go back to school or something. Goodness gracious. I have not been through nothing.
Exactly. And they will appreciate it later. And they know even when it's happening.
That's so true.
Because, you know, you love them. But, you know, I also tell people one thing that I missed growing up. And I think, again, part of a positive of sorts of the pandemic, people couldn't eat out as much. So they had to eat at home together. And when I was growing up, we all ate at the table. That's what most families did. Guess what happened at the table? You didn't have to say, you didn't hear anybody saying, wow, I didn't know my kid had a whole room full of guns. I didn't know that this was going on, because I can remember sitting at the table and I'd be trying to hide stuff, hide being bullied or hide whatever. Kids can only hide it for so long. And I remember my mom would be like, what's the matter? Nothing. You know, oh no, it's something wrong. Then we'd have a talk after you know, what's going on. Or just having fun with each other at the table, you know, laughing and joking with each other and eating. You know, a lot of other countries really use dinner time and meals as the time of bonding. And you can really kind of see a little bit more into your child's world. But when everybody goes to their own room, take their food and eat their own room, we're all, you know, you run into soccer practice and this and that and the other, and you're just grabbing food on the go. You kind of miss some of that. With what's going on with your child.
I think it's important for everybody to know that your child's not going to come to you if they don't trust you. They can also talk to a friend's parent or a coach or a teacher at school. And it's your job not to get mad when they go and talk to somebody else, or if they tell their uncle or aunt, because that's the person that they trust more with that info. And so you got to be wary of how you approach them, saying, oh, why are you telling them, or telling your business, or get mad at them? Because a lot of kids that we hear from, their parents get mad at them if they're talking to someone else about it. And I have a lot of kids come up to me saying, oh man, I just wish I could talk to my parents, but you know, they rather talk to their coach or someone at school.
And I've also, well, just thinking too, parents, if you think your kid is needing help, maybe you are too. You are the foundation of your child. So work on you too, so that you can be there for your kid. I've worked with a lot, like in my internship and just in general in residential treatment facilities, working with kids, and it's like, no wonder you're acting or feeling the way that you're feeling because of what's happening at home. So like if mom and dad or the caregiver, whoever, was taking care of themselves, then things would be better for everyone as a whole.
Yeah, I agree.
There's this really good resource called Parenting Decolonized. It's a podcast, but she also has a website, and it's led by Yolanda Williams. But it's these really meaningful conversations and resources, and she interviews with like psychologists and like these other professionals. It's very interdisciplinary. But looking at what are some of the things that we're seeing show up in our parenting that are results of that generational trauma, and that are also a result of that, just what Black people have experienced in the long history of the long history that is our country, and some of those practices and some of those abuses, and how does that translate into our day-to-day interactions and how we're trying to protect them. Are we protecting, we're policing our children, and what are healthier ways to do better when we know better? What are ways that we can take tools that are addressing how this situation is, and not the same tools that we were using 20 years ago when things were different, kind of thing? How do we meet today where it is and go from there for our children and for ourselves, kind of thing. On the topic of resources, oh, go ahead.
Well, we've got some more giveaways to give out before it gets too late. Yes, it's 8, but we've got 3 giveaways. All 6 of them right now. We will do all 6.
One month tuition to June's Fanfare.
We have 1 month tuition to Miss June's Fanfare Music Academy.
Ooh.
So I really wish I could have done this because I want to learn a lot of stuff, but
Are we allowed to get these?
That's what I said. Put my name in there.
Miss June,
How you can be on it? No, next time you just gotta find somebody to replace you on the panel, and then you can be in the audience, and that's what it is. Each one teach one. Find somebody to take your place, and then you can get Taco Bell and Starbucks too.
It's a target.
The one for this is Mini Hustle.
Mini Hassle? Minnie, you were about to get some music education. Lucky dog.
Grief counseling and a $25 Walmart gift card from Baby Store.
And now we have grief counseling and a $25 gift card from Baby Stewart Foundation.
Gift card, Walmart.
I think it's Walmart.
Yes.
Yes.
Amani Rowe.
Hey!
We know her. Pictures of Nia and the NAACP. We love you, Amani.
3, and now we have 3 $50 gift cards for Dinner on Us.
Oh my God.
Lillian McGrew.
Lillian McGrew. You can have Dinner on Us.
Oh. Jackie Moran.
Jackie Moran. That's my mom. Mom. So
real fast.
Right.
Say it.
Tangeray Moore Edwards. All right. And Tangeray Moore Edwards. Perfect.
It was actually in the chat.
What?
Y'all, please email us.
And now the grand prize. Hold on. And now $100 hair service to Nochi Berry Salon from Franklin.
I'm clicking off now.
Jaquavia. Jaquavia Demas.
Jaquavia Demas.
Yeah. All right. Just met her. Can't wait. Well,
wow.
Like I said, this isn't our first soul food. This won't be our last, so keep coming. But we had some questions from the chat too that I feel that we should definitely answer. But yes.
So one of the questions we've gotten more than once is directed towards Dr. Falls. People would like to know, they're like, hey, they've been Googling you, they've been looking you up. They're like, I see that it says you're accepting clients. How do they get in touch with you? And this is no pressure. I'm just the messenger. These are from the chat. People want to know. I can't hear what
I'm
you're
sorry. I
saying.
feel so bad because my duties have changed a lot in the last 6 months. I really don't see directly patients now in like the Galveston, Houston area because CPAN came on board and we needed to get people, staff doing that. And that's kind of one of my areas of, interest. So about the only way you probably, I don't want cause all these back doors. I'm sure I'll be hearing from UTMB, but I supervise residents or fellows in child psychiatry. Now, we're even pretty tight at UTMB, period, in terms of getting people in for child psych on the island. However, we have more child psychiatry fellows that's going to be coming on board in the summer that will really boost our number, because you might have heard me talk about earlier, not very many child psych people. What we really have been doing really well recruiting from internal UTMB. So that will actually open up some space to get people in that way. Now, when I work in family medicine, I'm there to help them with their patients and to teach them. And so sometimes when if you have a family practice doc at UTMB and you're needing psych, I am there to be able to see their patients kind of in that manner. Now, I don't take you on per se as my own patient, like if I keep you for several years, but I do see you, follow them with you. And then once you're really stable and doing well, then they can kind of really manage from there. And then they know how to reach me. If there are problems, we get you back in with me, that kind of thing. So I'm sorry, I know.
So they have to have a family medicine practitioner at UTMB, or more child psych are coming in the summer. So just schedule appointment with child psych.
I do that. I mean, you'll see me in the clinic supervising them in their med checks, the follow-up visits.
You'll see me, hopefully.
No, that's super helpful. You have nothing to apologize for, and just all of the wealth of knowledge, multiple that you've provided with us tonight has been extremely generous, and that's why people are so enthusiastic to try to get connected with you.
Let me add to that one of my colleagues at UTMB, Dr. Mallet.
Oh yeah, she's what?
She is with Teen Health.
Okay.
And also with Gulf Coast MHMR.
Okay. That's really
also highly
helpful.
recommend. She's very nice.
Yeah, she trained me.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
So our next question, and I'm going out of order. Some of these questions I answered as they were coming in through the chat. Some of them, if I didn't know, I didn't touch it because there are people who know things that I don't and can answer with more accuracy. And so this question is from Zuri. Is there such a thing as mental health crisis intervention task force in our Galveston ISD schools? And if not, would this be something to consider? And I don't think we have anyone directly from Teen Health on our panel, but if anyone knows, we do have school-based therapists, adjacent organizations.
So that's a great question. We will write that down. And so we can want to provide the accurate answers for these. So we will look into the research for that. I do, like Tarina said, there's school-based therapists there. Family Service Center has therapists there. Teen Health has therapists there. There's the school counselors. They also have, but no crisis response. I know community-wide, we have mental health deputies. And so if someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call the Galveston County mental health deputies, and they'll come out and assess the situation and see if that person is needing inpatient treatment. But in the schools, that's a great crisis response. I mean, there are things that happen all over in the community. COVID, student arrests, that's traumatic. Death of a community member, teachers. And so that would be, I feel, a very helpful.
Maybe next time we can have Dr. Mallet talk about on our next soul food session and have people from Teen Health.
Yeah, definitely.
School focus.
This next question is from Morgan Benedict. I apologize in advance if I've mispronounced anyone's names. Please check me. You can reach me through the email address that we've been sharing, and I'll do better next time. Their question is there any difference in training between public and private school psychiatrists? And I'm going to go ahead and add or psychologists, since we don't have a lot of school-based psychiatrists in Galveston. But is the training between public and private school-based mental health providers different?
I would not think so.
That's not different.
No, we all have to do the same licensing and everything like that. The setting's different. So you might have to not change, but provide more care based on like the setting and like the populations, whatever. But no, the training is not any different.
Okay. And we have the clinical director from Teen Health, Dr. Beth Oslander, who shared we work closely with school counselors to address suicide crisis in schools. And that is in response to the crisis response team question. So thank you, Dr. Oslander, for that prompt response. And then let's see. Some of these other questions I'm going to kind of roll into together. So questions about ways to, and really this could be a good segue because I don't have a lot of new questions. So these are kind of more resource specific questions. So questions about substance abuse supports on the island, about, sorry, I lost my space, affordable or free mental health services. Those were the main two. Yeah. And some of the things about generational trauma that we've addressed, but it seems like a pretty natural segue into us sharing about some of those resources that either we support or have been a part of or facilitate. So I'm going to kick it back to Shanice and y'all to kind of kick us off on what those resources are.
Yeah, so definitely Galveston, it has mental health resources. And there's free mental health resources out there as well. And so Family Service Center provides free therapy services, telehealth or in-house for children, families, adults, individuals. We have the Fatherhood Program, which is free therapy for fathers and father figures. That also includes uncles, grandpas, mom's boyfriend, dad's boyfriend, a male that is a support and caregiver for a child 0 to 17 in Galveston County qualifies for the Fatherhood Program. And that we also have a 24/7 dad group, which is a free group for dads, father figures to get support from other fathers and also learn skills to sharpen their parenting skills, communication, how to co-parent, discipline, and just learning about how your upbringing influences how you raise your child and how to be more involved with your kid's life. And then we have FAYS at Family Service Center, which is for family and youth services. And so that's free therapy for children. We have FAYS therapists in GISD campuses and then also mainland campuses. And so your child can get a therapist at school, or they can see a therapist after school at our Texas City or Galveston office. And then we also have VOCA, which is for people that have survived traumatic experiences. That traumatic experience could have happened yesterday. It could have happened 20 years ago. It does not matter. You qualify for free therapy. So you can go talk to someone about what your experience has been and how you can get back to being you. And then Family Service Center also provides therapy out of St. Vincent's House. So we have Tony, our therapist there, that can also see you there. And then I know that Gulf Coast Center provides their outpatient mental health clinic, and they have substance abuse clinic outpatient. And that is based on, not completely sure, but I know that they take insurance and I think a sliding scale fee. And I want to thank Gulf Coast Center for being one of our partners tonight. They helped us in planning this, and thank you so much. And then there's also the Resource Crisis Center. So if you have survived sexual abuse or domestic violence, you can get therapy there. Teen Health Clinic. There, I just can't keep thinking of them all, but we will post resources. We'll keep going on them. Google also helps. And substance abuse at Gulf Coast Center. I can't think of if I'm missing anything.
We can all put it all on our Facebook page, both of them. And this is like not the first one, but we'll definitely put it all down. And I think Dr. Falls, it'd probably be cool if I could maybe like Shanice come up with like a little thing so I can have it in the clinics. That'd be kind of cool. But yeah.
Okay. And we're also sharing into the chat some of the resources that Shanice has mentioned. Another new initiative is through NIA Cultural Center called Harambe for Galveston's Youngest Citizens. And it's not specifically like therapy services, but it is engaging our Black parents and Black caregivers to take advantage of some of the local group-based multi-session parenting classes. And these are classes that have been shown to, one, we know our parents need more support, right? If we're saying, oh, you should do this and you should do that with your kids, we want to show up as a community and give you the supports to do that. We also know that a big reason that our parents are not participating in these classes is because a lot of them are not culturally responsive and speaking to, or led by or speaking to or taking into consideration experiences unique to the Black community. And so a big part of that is us engaging these parents saying, will you please take these classes? We want to know how beneficial they are, but we also want to financially compensate you to provide us with feedback for how to make these better. And so that compensation is about $30 an hour for parents to take these classes and help us get our partners to basically improve these classes in a way that going forward, they're culturally responsive to the communities that need them the most, not because there's anything inherently wrong with Black families, but because there are things that we experience, adverse childhood experiences, adverse community experiences, generational trauma that is specific to us and specific to our heritage and our history and the different things, policies, all of that, that disproportionately put us at a disadvantage. And so I'll also share a link about that into the live stream chat.
Right.
And we should wrap it up, but like I said, this is not going to be our first and last soul food session. We're going to keep going, and so please do the survey, the questionnaire that is probably all over in the chat, so that we know like what kind of groups or what kind of things are we needing in the community. Do we need to have suicide groups, more conversations about depression, postpartum, substance abuse? What do you feel that we need to do more of? And so we can talk to our partners. I can talk to Family Service Center about, hey, a lot of people want a suicide group, suicide prevention group, or a support group. So we can come together as a community and bring these resources together so that we can help each other. Mm-hmm. And so I want to thank
Dr. Paul, drop the resources there.
Thank you. All of our partners.
Yes, I just added. It's a book. Some of you may know Dr. Napoleon Higgins. He's in private practice in the near I think it's on Bay Area Boulevard. And so he, along with a group of other African American psychiatrists, wrote this book, Mind Matters: A Resource Guide to Psychiatry for Black Communities. And it goes through pretty much all the major psychiatric disorders, explains them in layperson's terms, and kind of gives you a guide on how to proceed. And because sometimes people are wanting to know, is this really a problem for me? I don't want to go to a psychiatrist yet because maybe they're not to that point yet, but is this a problem? I need to read more about it. And sometimes what you find online is, okay, and sometimes it's not. And so I feel like this was really a good it's not a long read. You can even pick a chapter out of there if I just want to know about depression or whatever, that I think is a good resource.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll be checking that out. But I would like to thank all of our partners, communities and schools, Baby Stewart Foundation, NAMI Gulf Coast, the Gulf Coast Center, Fanfare Music, Lutheran Academy, UTMB, Nia Cultural Center, Family Service Center, Nochi Berry Salon, and Councilwoman Sharon Lewis for organizing, planning this quickly. We had to reorganize, and just all of the stuff that you guys contributed to this conversation and wanting to have this conversation and the excitement that everyone has brought. It's been great. I'm excited for more. And thank you, Shanice. Okay. Thank you, Jonathan. Behind
the camera. I don't see your face, but thank you, Jonathan, for that's what I see in the Future Is Us.
Yes. Check out The Future Is Us. Check out all of our partners. That we all have social media. That's who we are. This is going to stay on our Facebook page. It's going to be on our YouTube. So continue to watch it, share it, and stay tuned for more. Soul Food Sessions, and take care of yourselves.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Success.